Funny,
We
that's
were
what we
saying
were
they're
saying.
like
Oh, we're live.
the terrorists of insects, aren't they? It's just like you can't do anything about them.
So we were just talking about the Bin Laden family that got killed in the jet and how they were just about to give evidence at the Iraq inquiry.
Right.
And you were telling us a bit about the Iraq inquiry, I think, Matteo, and then we decided to go live. Cut you off.
Yeah, no, I mean, so the Iraq inquiry is something that I think it was the correct me if I'm wrong, but it was called something like the Chilcot inquiry or something along those lines, and it was started effectively after the Blair years, when they realised the whole weapons of mass destruction was a packable, complete and utter lie, and they found out the real reason why Britain wanted to go in there, which was to wreck another country, why not, and then claim resources. But apart from that, the inquiry started and it's still going on at the moment. And the guy, the people running it, the committee running it, are refusing to accept any help with it from voluntary organisations or businesses and so forth. And no one can really understand why, because it just seems like they're delaying it basically. So it's been going on since the Iraq War, effectively sort of halfway through the Iraq War. The committee was set up, and it's still not done with the report. And they have no deadline as to when they're going to release it. So it's just going to the committee's just going to sit there for another 4 or 5 years.
So the plane,
by the time they do release it, no one's going to care.
The plane went down. Obviously, it had family in there that were going against the government, which, to be honest, half the right-wing members of the West aren't going to. They're not going to think anything of it anyway. But from where we're standing, the same as the US, we had pretty humongous anti-war demos for the Iraq, which were ignored and not even aired. Was yours quite big, Patrick?
I'm sorry?
Your...
We're over here and it got really loud for a second.
Patrick.
What?
The Iraq war demo in the US, was it quite big?
It was huge. It was as I was saying earlier, they made attempts with the media, the mass media, in order to just, like they did with Occupy, in order to film small portions of it to make it seem a little smaller than what it was, to diminish its impact. And I mean, I understand that and everything, but it was huge. There were millions of people in the streets in Chicago, in New York, in LA, everywhere. And I don't know. I remember being pissed about it because there's no reason we should be going to war with Iraq unless it was for oil. And if that was the case, just say so. It turned out to be that way, hasn't it?
Yeah, ours was pretty big and was totally ignored and hidden as well. Do you know what I mean? We had quite a substantial amount of people there, and no different from the US. We were just ignored as though it didn't happen.
Yeah, there was no. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, we all know the whole story. There's so many holes in it. From that day to the things leading up to it, to who profited from it, to who, at this point, is still profiting from it. It's a sick circle. No matter how you look at it, no matter what you believe, there's something messed up there.
Very.
I mean,
I
was going to say something that concerned me, like along the war lines, is I don't know if you heard about it, but New Zealand and America tested a tsunami bomb.
I didn't know about
tsunami bomb.
Yeah, to wipe out like coastal regions if they want to.
Why don't they just use that?
Pardon?
Why don't they just use that microwave radio thing that they got up in Alaska? That's supposed to affect the weather in some kind of way. I forget what it's called.
HAARP. Isn't it HAARP?
Yes, HAARP.
This was like a series of 30 bombs in the sea to create a tidal wave to wipe out a area that they decided. But you think, how devastating a tsunami is. So you're trying to create a tsunami to kill people. How many of them are going to be civilians? I thought we had like laws of war where human
Geneva Convention.
Yeah, you can't just go killing civilians. How many armies are there on the coast? Anyway.
When has that ever stopped anybody?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. It was called Project Seal, by the way.
Project Seal.
Just if anyone, it was in the Telegraph actually. I
That's
don't know if that's the one you were referring to.
Yeah,
so. Where did they drop this?
it's
Off the coast of New Zealand.
and
Was it
were they radioactive bombs? Can't remember in the story.
No, they were just large detonated charges. Like it's not about radioactive or anything like that. It's just they're normal bombs, but it's where they put them
so
Yeah.
that create a
it's
30-foot
place.
tsunami able to inundate a city.
I mean, that really is basically saying we don't give a shit. We're going backwards.
You're not targeting specific groups in that way, are you? You're wiping out whole communities, civilians, children, women, the lot, animals, livestock. You'd be wiping out civilization in that area.
Properties.
It's like Chernobyl.
God, this is weird for a Telegraph. Go on, sorry, go on.
No, go for it.
No, all I was going to say is I was just reading the Telegraph article, and there was a pretty weird sort of, obviously this is the mainstream media, so you'd think they'd sort of be, very reserved of what they report and all the rest of it, as we all know. But apparently this article comes from this guy's new book called Secrets and Treasures by Mr. Waru. Reveals other unusual findings from the archives, including the Defense Department records of thousands of UFO sightings by members of the public, military personnel, and commercial pilots. Could be a good read.
Yeah.
But a bizarre sort of turn of events. But it's weird, really, because I don't know. It just seems that they have more effective things. I mean, why a tsunami bomb? It doesn't make sense.
To me, that sounds like a stupid idea because the premise of it doesn't sound that difficult. You could do that in several ways if you think about it. I mean, you could use more shallow areas of the ocean in order to have more of an impact from the force of the explosion bouncing off the bottom as well as going downwards. So you'd have the outward and a bouncing back sort of a motion. If you were able to do it in the right place, you would be able to create more force in the same manner in which people use to make bombs here, every place above water, where if you enclose something so there's more force pushing the shrapnel or whatever you put inside out, you do more damage. It's the same sort of a principle of force. You're able to direct that force. Now, if they're able to utilize the ocean floor and I guess the shape of it in order to do that, then how hard would it be for anybody else to do that? Because, I mean, it doesn't sound like a hard concept, does it?
Do you think maybe it's a distraction because we know they've got technology that would wipe out vast areas anyway, especially nuclear? Do you think it's just a way to divert people from the fact that they already have weather warfare and as such?
I don't think it's to do with that. I just think it's because I don't think all of these are, I don't agree that everything that the governments and corporations do or anything like that is all utterly meticulously planned. In a lot of these things, for me, this is just a product of a overinflated budget within the military and generals that have very little to do because there are no serious wars, there are no real threats anymore. The threats that we have around we've created ourselves. So they just have a massive budget. So what do you do when you've got a massive budget and a wish to create bigger and more destructive and weird bombs? You obviously try and build one that creates a tsunami. I think that's all this one really is. It's just generals with a massive level of inflated budget. I mean, we're talking about the US here.
It's strange.
Who have a ridiculous
It's strange how
budget.
it's being reported on, though, isn't it? I don't understand why they're reporting on it.
Well, the Telegraph's always been quite good with that kind of reporting, and it makes news. I mean, it sells papers in the end.
You think about this, I don't know how much money was invested, but it wouldn't take, if you think about it, it wouldn't take much of an investment in order to just create enough of something to create a small amount of press so that people talked about it and it created fear. Something's much more effective if it creates fear than if it's never used.
Well,
It's not like they created it. All it is a load of bombs that already existed, that all they've done is they've strategically put them in a certain way to create a tsunami. So they didn't actually create anything. All it is just maybe what they actually created was just a new strategy of using bombs that have already existed. So it's not... I just think it's one of those things that it's somebody in the army clearly had way too much time on their hands and they just thought it up. It's not like a huge thing in the back of the head. I mean, if you talk about fear, nuclear bombs are fearful.
But
You know, that is more of an
possibly
issue.
as well, it could be looked at because of the amount of devastation that these strategically placed bombs could make. Is this the way of showing people that that we should be checking other countries for bombs, any bombs, not even just nuclear bombs, but bombs, because it can cause mass destruction anyway? Do you mean it gives that mindset of all right, maybe we'll give up on, all right, Iran hasn't got nukes, or well, yeah, well, they have, but you know, Iraq hasn't got nukes, but we can't have them having bombs neither, because they devastate places too. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know what they're doing. Like, their tactics are so manipulative, and the West, they really do want Iran, don't they? Like,
you need fear in order to manipulate people. So if you have more things that are fear that more people can get a hold of, you can create more enemies. If you can create enemies, you can spend more money to defend against them.
And also,
it's also a show of force, isn't it, from the Western point of view? Because don't forget, the West are losing a grip on the world, and we need to show the world that we're still top dog.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it's not actually fear towards the people, but it's showing countries in the Middle East and the South America and Africa and so forth not to screw around with the West, basically. Or it's a show of force.
It's also a fear for the people, though, that they do like promote, because then they can take away more of your rights. The more fearful you are, the more you want protecting, the more they can ask in return.
Yeah, but this is something that they've created themselves, so why would we fear our own government? If you believe the propaganda, why would you fear your own government?
That's a good question.
I'm just saying, if you're not supposed to fear your own government, why would you? I mean, if they wanted to create fear within us, they would create another terrorist attack. Or something along those lines.
The premise is that there's too many of us for them to manage anyway. So the only way they can manage us is if we're fearful of them in some sort of a way, of some retribution for acting in a way untoward, in some sort of a fashion. That's what controls us. The only thing that really does control us, because there's too many of us for them to manage, is the fact that we do fear that retribution amongst one of us or two of us or a small group of us. What might happen, which is always worse than what actually does happen anyway. But if go ahead.
You've got like the separation that all these things create. You know, like all these stupid ideas that they come up with. You've got all different groups fighting different things rather than getting together and fighting one thing.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? The more stupid ideas they come up with, the more they separate us into our own little bubbles of who's interested in this topic and who's interested in that topic, rather than uniting on the bigger topics.
Exactly.
Like bees.
Like bees.
Let's go on to bees.
It's gone to bees.
Go on.
Well, right. I watched a documentary, and obviously it's everyone's seen the meme that when we go, we're taking you with us, and that is the case, isn't it? But when bees go, everything, it would die. It would die. They help us. That they're here for a reason. And I was watching. It's not just all this Monsanto business and all that kind of thing, but mobile phones are really bad. Bees live on the magnetic field of the Earth, and the amount of microwaves and waves coming from phones it's scientifically proven that it's killing the bees off. There was something like an 80% drop in one region of bees, of a certain type of bee.
Have you ever?
They're all dead in my garden. They're all dead.
You seen what they how the Wi-Fi looks like to a bee? They can see.
How does it look like?
It's like a rainbow, like spectrum. The bees can see the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi. I don't know what you explain it as. Their eyes are different.
Yeah.
But they reckon that with a lot of things, like birds that use the magnetic field to migrate.
Every animal on Earth uses the magnetic field, but those that fly, tend to more influence with it.
There is a different reason for that being off other than mobile phones, and
beautiful, by the way. I've just had a look at it.
Huh?
It is beautiful. What a BCs.
Mm.
But we're in the middle of a polar shift.
Yeah.
So the magnetic field has shifted. It's shifted a little bit.
I can't remember how much by it's, but for.
Well, you mean magnetic north not being in the north anymore, but it's in somewhere in Canada.
And it's screwed up the day cycle, which also bees and birds and that go by as well.
So,
but that's natural, though. I mean, the polar, what's it called? The magnetic shifts from north to south.
Yeah.
Every, I don't know how many millennia, and apparently we're due for one.
Yeah, and it doesn't take that long apparently. Only about 100 years. I reckon we could be adding into one, or in one. I know it's natural, but I'm just saying that as well as the mobile phones, you've got other reasons of what.
Well, you've got mobile phones,
Monsanto too.
Yeah.
Monsanto too.
Yeah.
But Monsanto don't mind because they can create their GMO pollinators and their plants that don't need pollinating, and they'll be fine as long as you've got the money to buy their seeds.
I mean, until you have the money, that's the point.
Yeah. You'll make pollinating a profit. You'll have little Chinese kids with feathers going around the flowers, collecting pollen.
Oh my God, that's an image I didn't need to have. Little Chinese kids running around.
Damn it, we can't earn from McDonald's anymore. We need a new scheme. Let's kill all the bees.
Yeah.
The same with the water, though, the fracking. They've done the same with the fracking, haven't they? The fracking is down to the privatisation of water. There's no profit from it. It can only come back to one thing: the privatisation of water. Way to go, Nestle.
But that's why capitalism must ultimately collapse on itself, because it needs to constantly grow. And what happens when all the resources are gone?
Well, it's not. I think it's not just that. I think it becomes more than that, because capitalism would never outlast or even get to the point where we run out of resources. Because realistically, the Earth isn't running out of resources. We do technically still have oil. We do. It's not so much that. I think that capitalism's dying out because of lack of competition. Because as companies get bigger and bigger and bigger and win those competitions and so forth in those markets, they then take over other markets. I mean, Monsanto dominate the food and GM market. Microsoft dominate the other market. Google dominate the other market. And once you start to get that, then companies get too powerful.
The only good thing is the companies. Sorry.
Monsanto, they dominate the seeds because they own that seed bank. That's Microsoft and Monsanto.
The only good thing about the big companies is where people think there's this one whole. There's one person, one elite group ruling the world. They fight just as much as the next person, don't they? If you've got Bill Gates turning around and saying, yeah, let's have a depopulation agenda, and then you've got Goldsmith saying, sod off, we've got people digging for diamonds out there, man. We can't kill them off. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole need for each one, isn't there? They don't want exactly the same as each other, no different as anyone else. And
of course. Because they want to survive just like the next man.
Yeah.
So the world actually wouldn't be just screwed up.
If you watch The Corporation, it's a really good documentary on which kind of it blows the whole there's one elite group trying to rule the whole world agenda, and it shows it for what it is. It's no different from businesses pitching against each other. The same with these, they work together, but they're just as quick to stab each other in the back, aren't they?
Of course, I mean, Microsoft and Google are always head-to-head, because Microsoft want more information than Google, for the time being, are for this sort of freedom of the internet. So a lot of ways, because it works in their favour. Yeah. And then you've got Monsanto wanting one thing, then you've got JP Morgan wanting something completely different, then you've got The Economist wanting something else. And all of these businesses have their own agenda, and they're fighting between each other. But what you're seeing is like almost like the culmination of what capitalism is, because capitalism works well when you've got loads of little businesses competing for better service. Small businesses that are working in either the national communities, local communities, providing a service. But eventually they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, win those different competitions, and that's what we've got now. We've got businesses that are bigger than governments at this point, making more money than governments.
Didn't one of them made themselves a religion, didn't they, or something? I can't remember which one it was.
Well, for tax purposes, probably. But I mean, for example, Google have their own foreign office because they deal with government so much that they've got their own foreign office. I mean, you've clearly got something wrong there when you've got a company that is big enough to have a foreign office.
Kind of makes you think a little bit, doesn't it? Look at
Well, it really does.
Look at Facebook. I mean, come on. I mean, Ted, I mean, you know, people. It's funny because you get people on a certain spectrum of our society that talk about some of these things. You get considered to be conspiracy theories. And when we were talking about earlier, you know, with 9/11, that was sort of the beginning of a whole, I guess, massive thing where people are able to be discredited because they question our governments and the stories that we get about things at this point, because we've been proven to have been that bullshit so many times. And when you talk about things like this, I mean, you know, when people bring these questions up, they get looked at as if they've got the tinfoil caps on, like they're crazy, because they're just questioning things, going, well, what the fuck? Why is that? You know, and I think that part of that is because people like Alex Jones in the media, and others, I don't need to single him out individually, but people that just use all the stuff that they can throw up there that they think may stick to a wall, see what does stick. And part of what they say is true, but part of it's complete bullshit.
The thing is, with conspiracy theory, a lot of it has been factualized. You've got, say for like example, the banks. It's been public knowledge that the banks run off debt and they're fraudulent. That's what they're doing. That the banks are mobsters, but no one cares. As long as they're assets, it's common knowledge that they are spraying chemicals in the sky for whatever reason, and that some of those chemicals aren't great for humanity. Nobody cares.
Isn't it more so that people don't feel like there's anything that they can do about it?
It could be, yeah.
Or do you think?
I mean, I think it's that more than nobody cares. I think people don't feel like they matter. I mean, a lot of it is, I mean, you look at these big issues, and I remember seeing, what was it? I think it was a Vice News documentary a little while ago, and a ton of comments at the bottom. It's like, oh my, this is terrible, but just because I've got this knowledge, I still can't afford a car. I've still got to pay rent. That's how people look at things nowadays. It's like, well, so what? There's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is try and make a bit of money. And that is almost like the collective mind of humanity is almost.
I do believe that we are also very good at living off the backs of the next generation. I don't doubt for a second there are people who are quite willing to say, well, not in this lifetime, and willing to put it down to their legacy, you know. I think that still has a massive pull on it, that people don't think it's going to happen in this lifetime.
Especially with the environment.
I think some of the problem is we're just like, even those, if you say that nobody cares, but if you say that like people who are activists obviously care about something because they're out trying to change something, but even activists can't agree amongst themselves what the right way, right ideas are or things like that. And going back to like when we were saying earlier, we've all got our own issues that we're interested in. You know, some might be animal rights, some might be fracking, some might be Freeman and common law, and we're all fighting little individual protests, and we're missing the bigger picture of how everything all connects and fighting for that big issue, which is probably corruption.
But I think that's also what Matteo says, that I think even the activists can get, oh well, we're not going to take down the bankers and the Crown Commission or the people, you know, the three cities. We're never going to penetrate that, so we might as well start small. I think that's probably the same sort of thing in that way. It's even activists having that, I can't do anything about it, so I'll deal with what I find important.
I mean, for me, a lot of that is the media in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at the way, I mean, a lot of people feel this way, partly because they're bombarded by negative stuff continuously, day in, day out, by the press. You turn on the TV, it's the same old stuff. And if you hear about it continuously, you're like, well, what good is anything I do going to do to such massive amounts of hatred, from the thing that's going on in Calais, for example, to ISIS, to all sort. I mean, take your pick. There's so much negative stuff out there that people just can't deal with it anymore. I mean, I've spoken to so many people, for example, that have just given up watching the news. They just don't care. So it's not
Yeah,
that
I
they've
don't.
given up
I
watching
don't.
the news because they think it's rubbish.
I
They
don't
just don't
watch
watch
the
it
news.
because it's too negative.
Yeah, I don't watch the news, but at the same time, I think there's the media itself. I'd give credit to most of the activists on the scene that they don't actually take any note, and it would be very hard for someone like the Daily Fail to actually persuade an activist that something they were saying is true. So something other than mainstream media has to be affecting activists, because I would say a whole amount of them don't catch mainstream media. They use alternative media.
I
I
think
haven't watched BBC News unless I want to get angry, or I want to see a perspective of what a less enlightened person is being fed, then I don't touch the mainstream media.
I think some of it's like Matteo says, that the right wing always come together, and they're, you know, even on separate things. But we can get quite snobby about what causes we'll back and what causes we won't back, even if we've got a common enemy. You know, and that's what the left does need to get over: the branding, the individuality, and be a bit more of a collective, and have a bit more, you know, of a collective brain rather
I,
than an individual one.
I think it's a
Yeah.
matter of finding the right place for every person with a conscience to be able to plug in. Because there are different ways that each of us can do what we do. For example, everybody that I can see in this conversation I know does multiple things. Whether it be on the larger scale, with a larger type of a cause, be it war, talking about the war in Iraq, as we were earlier, or in something such as what Kiki did this weekend with the face painting, or what she does on a lot of weekends, which is, helping and feeding and clothing the homeless people. Um, I think that there's something, we're able to do multiple things. Everybody else, the normal, everyday average person, should be able to do something in order to, at the very least, make them feel a little bit better about the larger situation, and they're doing some small little piece.
But I've had a member of the trades union turn around to me and say to me, I've said, because I send them all like invites to feed the homeless, like I'm like a militant at it. I'm like, you will come one day, you will come. The Green Party, Labour Party, the lot. I send them all, my local councillors, everything, an invite every single week. And
Right.
I spoke to him personally, and he turned around and he said, why do you even bother? He goes, why are you there feeding the homeless when you could be fighting it from a little bit further above? Because he sees himself as trade union, he sees himself fighting it at a higher sort of
But see,
place, and
that's
he doesn't see the point in what I do.
But that's the point where we need more community, and we need to understand that everybody has a different place that they can plug in, and if they do plug in, he may be a person that does things on a different way, and from his perspective, maybe it seems like he's doing something, and he can quantify that in a different way than what that would be for you or for me.
Yeah, see, I can be, say, like I can get kind of snobby on it, because I see trades union and things like that almost a little bit people's assembly. When you
Yeah,
get your pay rise, where are you going to be? Do you know what I mean? Will you still be helping people with your anti-austerity? No, you won't, because you'll have your pay rise, you'll be off the street. So I can get a little bit like that too, but I still attend their events and still, do what I can to support.
well,
See, I get that a lot as well. When I did that protest at the council, the Tory councillor was like, why don't you get involved in politics, or why don't you get up there and try and force change? there is enough bureaucrats doing that shit. There's enough charity that gets a lot of funding that is fighting that corner. What we are short of is people in our communities going out into the streets and helping people.
Yeah.
You know, I contacted our local homeless charity about going out and helping the homeless, and they were like, "Don't feed them, you'll encourage them." And I was like, "These are people, not fucking pigeons." You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and the thing is, I'm not like, say for Gaza, I was raising funds to help them.
You encourage them, my God.
Yeah,
was
that's
the
what they
homeless
say at the council.
charity.
When me and P did our homeless thingy in Oxford, we met quite a few people there. And when we went to the can't remember where it was, P, but they said it, didn't they? That it's encouraging them.
Yeah.
Encouraging them to do what exactly?
To be homeless, because they're going to sleep on the streets just to get a free pair of trousers and a cuppa and something to eat off us. And when we went to we had some stuff left over because we literally ran the car full of stuff, and we said we'd take it to the local like night shelter. But all the homeless people were saying don't do it because they take it all home, they find what's best, and they bring all the rubbish back to them.
We sat outside the homeless shelter and waited as long as it took before the police was going to be called, and handed it out to people going in and out. But even they were scared of being kicked out of that hostel for taking anything from us or talking to us.
At Occupy Boston,
That's ridiculous.
At Occupy Boston, when the camp was going on, we fed, I believe it's, forgive me if I'm incorrect on the exact number, but I believe it was over 3,000 people a day, based upon food that we had people dumpster dive, people that went to the stores, to the restaurants, and got the food and the donations that we could get, and the stuff from the pantry sorts of situations like you're talking about, where what we did was we developed ways of having people cook that food, put it in large containers and bring it to the camp so that we could then feed it to the people. And like I said, we fed like 3,000 people a day. I mean, if you're talking about an issue of encouraging people, I think we were saving lives.
This is the thing with certain things you're fighting. It's like I said, the thing, like I was raising funds on behalf of Gaza for medical aid on Sunday. On the Saturday, I'm not fighting against homelessness. I'm just trying to help them stay alive. That's all I'm doing. Now I'll fight disability. That's my fight, and education. If there's a fight that I do take to the top, and I will go to the commission and stuff like that, it's education and disability. But homelessness, no, I don't fight. If I was fighting it, I would be in the council and I would be higher up trying to do something. But as P said, some people need to just help them stay alive.
None of our governments, none of our the basis of our governments are written, and like in this country, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Magna Carta, any document from any government does not, as far as I know, does not imply that the only way for a citizen to be heard is through their elected official. I mean, to me, you don't have to go that route necessarily in order to have a voice.
No.
When we did Coventry,
it's one of a multiple.
There was nobody.
Ways.
Yeah, there was nobody there when we went to Coventry. We did a little demo-y thing, just me and P, mainly P. When we walked through, there was nobody there. By the end of what we'd had to say, there was about 60 people listening.
Wow. Go P. What did you do?
It was mainly P.
What did you do?
Was this the
It was a what?
What?
The Lady Godiva thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's.
The best bit was the man who did the Braveheart speech.
Well, you should have filmed that.
You gave the Braveheart speech?
Some passerby joined in and he stood up and he was like, "But you'll never take our freedom."
Oh, it was so funny. There was mums asking kids like to take photos and everything. So we were like, "Sit near the lady, have your photo taken." And then the police were like, "There's children around." It's like, yeah, I know, they've had their photo taken. It was hilarious. It was an amazing day.
Did the mother know? Did the mothers know that you were naked, Pete?
She had tit tape.
Oh, God, fine.
Did you tape?
I had really long hair.
She looked like a yeti.
Like, what do you do when you do that? I mean, my God, you'd have to do something. I mean,
It was hilarious. But
that's hard.
she rode off on a unicorn, a little, you know, the little stick-haired unicorns, and it neighed as well. And people were applauding her. But the police collared us on the corner, and they were like, get out of Coventry now!" And we sort of like ran round the corner for somewhere for her to get dressed. Cause
we went and harassed the BBC.
Yeah, as she was getting changed, it was right outside of this, like, we realised it was right outside of this, like, Christian place. There was a Christian shouting, "You can get salvation, we can save your soul."
I'm way past that.
It was so funny. But yeah, and then we went...
Right, that's it, you're both going to hell.
We went messing around at the BBC, pressing their little buttons on their thingy, and we were like, hello?
Will you be reporting on Gaza tonight? There's a few bombs going off.
Yeah. Have you heard about it? Will you be reporting it?
That's crazy.
It was a good day. We got smoothies.
Yeah.
That's alright.
It was a monsoon.
Oh, that sounds good. Bubble tea.
Yeah, it was,
So good right now.
just before she got ready, we were like, oh my God, are you seriously going to do this? Because it was like thunderstorming.
Oh my God.
Smoothies makes me think about bubble tea. I want mango bubble tea now.
What? Bubble tea?
Smoothies makes me want bubble tea.
Oh, what's that?
You never had bubble tea? It's like a smoothie.
Never.
These little things in it that are like really good.
It sounds bizarre.
I've never heard of that.
No?
Neither have I.
No.
Look it up. It's called bubble tea. Look it up online.
If it's American, it's probably deadly. Diabetes.
You know, with the whole lack of health and safety and all.
It's actually Asian.
What?
Bubble tea.
It's actually Asian. It's called bubble tea.
God, it's so colourful. That can't possibly be good for you.
It's so good though.
It's like green, pink, blue, and red.
That's funny.
It's really good.
It might be like a cocktail of E numbers.
Made by Monsanto by any chance? That's where you get that glow, Patrick.
Oh, you're killing me.
I get that glow. I think that's this.
Taiwanese tea-based drink.
Yeah. Hey, what are the little things that they put in it? It has those little things in the bottom of it. They're so good.
What, E numbers?
E numbers? No, it's
Plastic
the little things.
Oh, the little black thing.
They're like tapioca or something.
Honeydew flavoured bubble tea.
It's so good.
Tapioca pearls, that's the one.
Yes, they're really good though.
I like tapioca. Tapioca and rhubarb.
Oh, yum.
It actually looks quite nice.
You either
Health
love it or
concerns. Oh, here we go.
yeah. May need
I
insulin.
think we're talking about bubble tea on this today. I'm sorry. It's my fault.
It's funny.
It's funny how there's a massive article on the health concerns of it now as well.
Oh, is there? I'm sure it's not too good for you.
Oh.
Something about stabilizers.
Oh. Well, so where does Monsanto fit into this?
Where do they not fit into anything?
Ah.
Well, Wendy
We should
was
probably
buying
go back into politics because, yeah.
Wendy was buying some Manuka honey, she thought, from Aldi, right? And she was like, "Oh, it's curing me." And then we read the label, and it said Manuka type honey.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you're such liars. How can you get Manuka type honey? It's not even Manuka.
Something style. That means it ain't what you think it is.
Well, just to sort of finish up on the bubble tea then. Tapioca pearls, milk powder, and juice syrups have in the past been found to contain banned chemical additives.
Oh. Pesticides.
Oh.
Yum, yum.
That's probably why you don't have it here.
So should we talk about old Jess?
Who?
Jess?
Jeremy. Jeremy.
Jezza.
Jezza.
Jeremy Kyle.
No. Colbin.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
He might get elected.
I know. I keep encouraging people to sign up. Pay the £3, have a vote. Well, it's worth it. I haven't done it myself because I hate the Labour Party. But
I was going to say, that doesn't make a blindest bit of difference, but he might get elected. I don't think he will, though. Something's going to happen at some point somewhere.
Well, they've already started, and this is what we can talk about. They ran a story saying that he kept quiet about the paedophile thing ages ago. Not something I really know much about, but it's funny how the papers are running stories like that now. He's getting popular.
Well,
Of
doesn't
course,
that
because they want to
instantly
get him
admit
out.
to the guilt? Doesn't that instantly admit to the guilt of paedophilia being a article in Parliament? If they're bringing it up in the first place, then they're already admitting that it's not a conspiracy, like David Cameron said.
Well, I mean, it's already been coming out, you know, the whole pie thing.
Can't really stop it, can they?
International exchange.
It's beyond stopping now, though.
That's all just icky. God. Oh.
Yeah, Britain's got a huge problem with that for some reason. Did you
Well,
hear? You know that cocaine lord? What was it? The guy that was doped up on cocaine with the 2 prostitutes.
Yeah, and the orange bra.
Yeah, there was actually something like I have to confess that for once I actually looked at the Daily Mail because the Daily Mail, right, posted every bit of gossip that this guy talked about during the during the time he was filmed by the 2 prostitutes hired by the Sun, or allegedly hired by the Sun. And it was quite interesting because he was talking about pedophilia. And what he was talking smack about all the other sort of peers and that. But what was interesting is that he mentioned the fact that MPs or lords hiring prostitutes isn't that common. But Parliament has a huge problem with, and he says, in a quote, well, you know, boys.
Yeah.
So the point is that the problem still persists.
Yeah.
And the fact that this guy says it, he says that there aren't that many, like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's good to hire prostitutes, but what I'm saying is that that's not the big issue he's talking about. And I don't see why he would lie, because it's not like he thought he was going to be on camera.
No.
So that's worrying.
But I think it's not just England, though, is it? There's been some people come forward in America as well, haven't they? Some kids.
You've got Germany as well.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering about. I mean, it's got to go to other countries because
Well,
they really.
Italy's got always got a problem.
I would say it's a higher echelon kind of thing, as a lot of the not meaning to take it down a level, but a lot of the I can't remember what they're called, the videos where they die in them. They a lot of them have the young boy. Yeah, a lot of them have the young boys in it, and they go for a hell of a price. There's been quite a few testimonies about that.
What was this? Sorry.
The what's it called, P?
Snuff videos, isn't it?
Snuff videos, young boys. There's one called London Boy, which was funded by quite higher up, and they're going for millions, absolute millions. Now, there was it was said that obviously Jimmy Savile and a lot of the MPs that were found there, well, there was one in specific, which I can't name them because I couldn't tell you which ones, but one of the witnesses states that they were in the snuff film regarding little boys and that, and it's said so many times, you know.
Well, it always reminds me that I think it was Max Clifford who said it, that once you get so much money and so much power, you just keep, you know, you start off with pushing the boundaries of wanting to have sex on aeroplanes and in public, and then it goes to dominating, and then it, you know, it as because some people when they get power they think they can buy anything and get away with anything, and they're constantly testing just how much they can get away with.
But there's so many dark areas that you can't work out what's truth and what's fiction. It's like I couldn't comment on the whole Madeleine McCann thing, even though that's implicated as being part of the higher realms of, like, you know, paedophilia and that. But that,
I mean, that's school shooting as well.
Dunblane.
Yeah, they've
That's,
got
what is it, a 10-year?
100-year block.
100-year block on it.
You can't get any freedom of information for 100
Because the MP
years.
sold him the gun.
No, the MP, the gunman got applied to the police for a license, and the police said no, because he was a known sex offender, I think, or he was a known offender. He got refused a gun license. So then his local MP got him the gun license, and now there's, I mean, how many kids were shot there?
And it does say that there was doubt and questions whether how much Dunblane was involved in the paedophile ring.
And that changed our gun laws. That was the case that made us, you know, like, lose our gun rights.
That's bizarre. But it's, I mean, it's like, I mean, going back to that sort of, you know, Kanye pushing the boundaries thing. There was a documentary on Channel 4 quite a while ago, and it was sort of touching on the point of what's it called, you know, psychopaths and things like that. And it was quite an interesting documentary, because they were saying that a lot of you know, the majority of psychopaths end up going into professions like law, politics, banking, corporate, and that kind of thing. And these kind of people like the idea of they want power, and they're not. Maybe this is not an idea of having sex with boys because they are gay or because they fancy that. A lot of it is just a power trip.
Yeah. But you know,
They can dominate another male like that, and so on.
I said that about paedophilia for a long time. That I don't think it's yes, it is a sexual thing, but I think more than a sexual thing, it's a power thing. You have impotent men in wheelchairs that are paedophiles.
But power in itself can become a sexual thing, can't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the same in most cases of rape as well? Just in general, isn't that more?
It's about dominating another human being.
Right. It's not so much a sexual thing as it is.
Well, it is. I mean, that is what. Don't forget, it's what.
Power
what
is sexual.
Sexual is what turns somebody on, basically.
It's the act, but mentally, I believe it's a dominance act, though, more so.
Yeah. But if you look at 50 Shades of Grey, that shows how much dominance is a sexual act.
I mean, that's a good example, but I mean, it all depends on what. I mean, you know, anything can realistically be considered sexual. It depends on what turns on a person. But for that documentary was talking, in fact, about the idea of what's called psychopaths, and what effectively they find interesting, if you want to call it that, is the idea of power. And power in any form. So power in the fact of controlling someone's money, power in the fact of destroying someone in court, power of being able to decide what laws get built into a country and what don't, and power over a person. Like with paedophilia and controlling a person younger than you, for example, for sexual gain.
If you look at
get away with it as well. I think it's the fact of getting away with it. I think even the fact that some of them are so close to getting caught as well, I think that would be a massive turn on for these kind of people. The fact that they haven't been caught.
If you look at
how to get away with it,
they did that social experiment, didn't they, where they had so many people and they put so many in a certain uniform and so many in like a suit or a police uniform, something like that, and they never gave them any rules, but after so long, the people in the like uniform of police officer or whatever were domineering the people of.
The Stanford Project. I think,
yeah,
yes, cool.
And they were just everyday people, and how easily they changed with the
students,
of power. But, you know, that's quite interesting. That was quite an interesting study.
Because you wonder how long they'd be left in that room before they actually kill them.
Well, they had to stop it short because the abuse was getting too much.
Yeah.
It's
crazy, isn't it? That's the personality of humanity, I think. I think there was 3. I can't remember what the third one is, but it was like a a hierarchy type of thing, a tribal, and then I can't remember what the last one is, but humanity seems to fall into those three traits. And it kind of is. I think the other one was lone wolf.
So we all fit into one of those?
That's what it states.
What the three traits of what are the three traits?
Tribal, hierarchy, and I think the other one's lone wolf.
What's tribal or hierarchy? Isn't that the same thing?
No. Tribal is when there's no leader. When you're a close bonded group of a bit like a tribal, isn't it? Generally they're tribal. They're very, I don't know. I suppose some could have a leader, but they stick together. Hierarchy, you have a leader clearly.
Mm-hmm. And then lone wolf is just on your own, screw everybody else kind of thing.
But no, because you wouldn't necessarily screw everybody else with a lone wolf, because I know a lot of lone wolves in the movement, and they do float from group to group. To be honest, I would say me and P are more of a lone wolf type of variety, because we float from group to group. We don't have one specific tribe or area that we go to, but
we're floaters.
Yeah, like bits of poo in the sea. No, we are. We're not tribal. No, it's definitely not tribal. Too feisty for that. And hierarchy. You mentioned the word leader. It just doesn't go down well.
No.
So I would say more people fit into the lone wolf category than you think they do, even though it doesn't look like they do.
That's interesting. Because I mean, a lot of these issues are talk. We're sort of going back to the sort of discussion of what is the realities of human nature. You know, are we really genuinely nice to each other when there is no rules, or are we complete and utter bastards to each other and we rip each other to shreds if we got the chance?
Exactly. Does humanity need one of those two first structures to exist, and you're always going to have the third one anyway?
Well, I mean, the point is that the left argue that without law, without a government, we would actually be helping each other out. And the right argue, you know, the very sort of basic two arguments is that on the one side, they think that if society collapsed, we'd all come together and help each other out. And the right believe that if society collapsed, we'd all turn to cannibalism and just kill each other and beat each other up. Therefore, we need law, order, and society to keep us civil.
I don't know.
Those are sort of two basic arguments.
Google, there's this experiment they did. See if you can find it. I'm not sure what it was called, but they put a bunch of, say, like-minded people. I don't know whether it was on an island or in a somewhere, and they put them there as an experiment. They had everything they could need, really, you know, to live off the land and build their own things. They were left to their own devices, and they destroyed each other. They literally destroyed each other through bickering and disagreeing.
I think it's hard, because if you was to take people from this state and this system, they're so conditioned to certain. It's not like a natural evolution. You'd be taking someone out their comfort zone into not their comfort zone, and that's going to put pressures on that society as itself. If you evolve slowly into it, or if you take away the paranoia and the fear that's put in by the current system, I actually think that the majority of people just want a happy, good life.
But there's always going to be some cunt down the road that wants to steal your tomatoes.
Yeah, but the thing is, right, you can deal with your, you know, just because you haven't got like a law, but you've got a law
you'd have a natural law, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that you do no harm. That doesn't mean that you can go around doing whatever you like. Whatever actions you take, you're always going to face the consequences of somebody else's reactions to you. Now, if you haven't got a police force in your town, you can guarantee that the people in that town will take care of their own justice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but mob justice is never the right way to go.
Well, there's that tribe, isn't there, that circles
the
person that's done it, and they tell him all the good things about himself, rather than point out his faults. So when he's stolen or he's done something wrong, they all just surround him, and each one just throws compliments at him about what he's been and what an inspiration he was and what good things have happened in his life, and that works well for them, I'm thinking.
I mean, to me, the golden rule is do no harm. So even if you're judging somebody else, you should be thinking about the harm that you are inflicting.
I think the main problem with society like that is that laws become very complex, almost very, very quickly, because it all depends on where the boundaries are. Because what you may consider to be non-harmful to anybody else, I may consider to be harmful to myself. And then I take you to court, and then the law gets more complex, and then someone else takes someone else to court, and then it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. It's like, for example, I don't know, you smoking may not, you think it doesn't harm you, but if I'm sitting next to you, I may say, well, you're endangering me, you're hurting my lungs. So where do you sort of draw the line? So I think it really...
Yeah, but the thing is,
does complicate things
the only crime is where there is a victim. And everything else is just bullshit.
Well, what constitutes a victim?
Because I would be a victim if Patrick, for example, blew smoke in my face continuously while he was smoking. I would be a victim because he's killing me.
Right.
Yeah, but would you,
realistically, that's exactly what's
Matteo,
What I mean is,
run into the police and go through the court system, or would you sort out Patrick right on the spot?
We had a lady.
Could you say, Patrick, please, could you stop doing that?
Would
you not try and deal with it?
At the demo, she turned around. There was someone smoking next to her, and she turned around and she said, "Can you smoke elsewhere, please? That's affecting my space." And the lady, she just walked away, didn't she? She just walked off, went and smoked somewhere else. She did it in a real pleasant way, and it worked out well. There might have been a little bit of butthurt, but it did work out well.
But that is what should happen. But the trouble is that in this society, because everyone's looking for financial gain, realistically, what I should say is, Patrick, could you please smoke it somewhere else? Or I should just walk off, because what makes him have to move?
Well, that all comes down to, I think it comes down to humanity, doesn't it? It's like, I've seen it a few times in the park where a couple have sat there smoking it and they're right next to another couple who have a little baby laying there, rolling around on the mat, and the smoke, I'm sitting there getting agitated, my foot's tapping on the floor and the smoke's literally going into the baby's nostrils, and I'm like, it's not your place, it's not your place. But I think generally at the end of the day, humanity will do the right thing, in terms of they do know, but it's this lynch mob like mentality that is the problem, that you must die if you've done anything to wrong us. You know, it's wrong. Nobody deserves to die. It doesn't.
Or you got to pay through the nose just for something. You know, that idea of suing each other for financial profit, financial gain. But a lot of it for me is to do with the way society's indoctrinated us in a lot of ways. You know, schools tell us we got to be on our own. We got to screw over the next man. You got to do well. You got to do well. You got to do well.
Yeah, but that's all of this sort of shit is legislation. It's
money should never be anything. Money should never be a part of any kind of punishment, I don't think. I think money is the root of all evil. When it comes to punishment, if you hurt somebody, then you can quite easily make that up to them in other ways. I think you should be asked to make that up to them.
There's some things you can't make up.
It.
If you cripple somebody's child that needs medical attention for the rest of their life, that's a financial
That's a whole different issue, yeah.
You know, but I think that the system, that what I'm saying, like about dealing with your own things and doing no harm, that is obviously in an ideal system. That isn't in this system. It couldn't be in a monetary system where people are putting greed of people. It has to be in a more like
in an alternative paradigm. You'd have like the natural law, the common law, and
towns would still have police, but they'd only enforce the things that were victims.
Well, like in Iceland, the police don't have the weapons. They're not allowed to injure another person or threaten or make anybody threatened. If you look into Iceland, I love the way they're policed. The people police the police.
Yeah, but they're lovely, the Icelandic police.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got an Instagram account. It's great.
The people did that.
Which, talking of Instagram, I can't remember his name, but there's a bloke on there that's travelled from Sudan. He's got to Spain now, but I think he's been picked up by the police in Spain. But it's like the documentation of his journey, leaving his wife in African village, you know, his last meal with his mum, and then onto the boat, hiding, you know, being scared on the boat because it wasn't a big boat, it was a little rowing boat. It's quite a nice little account.
That's quite nice. I mean, it's quite, you know, it sort of shows you the journey of an immigrant in that kind of respect. But I mean, a lot of it, and going back to that sort of, you know, the nature of humanity, because I don't believe humans are good or evil in any sort of natural way. I just think, well, we're like sponges in a lot of ways. We just suck up whatever's in our surroundings.
Media.
And if we are constantly educated to be individualistic, to be greedy, then we will be exactly that. If we're told to be good and help each other out, and we see that, we do exactly that. That's why a lot of, you know, kids grow up in very, very different ways. A lot of it's to do with your surroundings, what you see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like animals are also, I mean, they're like sponges as well. Animals aren't necessarily good or bad. They are just a product of their surroundings.
Oh, it's like that 100 monkey kind of thing where the washing the coconuts, you know, they didn't do it. That one done it, a few done it, and then they all started doing it. The same as, you know, you get some cats, don't you? The cats that use the toilet. Well, that's not natural, is it? It's not natural at all. But mine won't use the toilet. I have tried. So some do, some don't.
There's a new TV series, I might watch it. It's called The Zoo, and it's about
Please tell me it's not about what Kiki just said.
no, it's about animals, and they all can communicate with each other, and they have an uprising against people. Like all the birds bring the planes out the sky.
So like Planet of the Apes.
Pardon?
Like Planet of the Apes, then.
Yeah, there's like tigers and things. They just like attack people, and they bring down the planes.
When's this? When's it?
I'll find out and chat when it starts. It's called The Zoo or something, but it sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Because
I always remember I read a comic. I couldn't tell you what comic it was, but I was really young, and all the people were in the zoo, and all the animals were free. It was like, I was like, could you imagine? And I think that's probably
there's that book of George Orwell. What's it called? Animal Farm.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Which is a really good book because it talks
no,
about
those angry pigs. Those angry pigs didn't. That actual video was in wasn't it Pigman, the Pink Floyd. That Big man, haha, charade you are. That one. It was the video in that. Maybe I've just made that up. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, the reason why I mentioned it is because it reminded me of, you know, the idea of animals taking over the human beings, but because the animals have seen what the human beings used to do, they were indirectly indoctrinated into that thing. So although they tried to create a better system, they ended up creating the exact same thing as what they were living under originally.
Which is what would happen.
So ingrown. It's so
which is
powerful.
what would happen if we had a revolution before an evolution of conscience. You would literally, humanity would pull back and grab at any straws that it had a familiarity if everything broke down. Because
we just bring back aristocrats and have kings and queens. Like, well, we still do have kings and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it would all start again. It would go in the same direction.
Well, that's why I think that, I mean, the best academic that I've ever read is, I don't know if you heard of him, this guy called Gramsci. And he was talking about the idea that he was an Italian philosopher that was a Marxist, and he was stuck in the cells during Mussolini's sort of fascist Italy. And the fascists were so stupid that he was allowed to write articles and publish books while he was in prison. And he was talking about how basically that you can never have a revolution, you can never have anything change in society without first creating an alternative civil society within a capitalist system that helps people's minds change. Because unless you control the media, you control schools, you control all of these things, or you have your own, you're never going to really have a revolution or a change from anything that you're in now. Because the most powerful way to control someone is through how they think, which is exactly what's happening now. You know, they indoctrinate us in school, then when you leave, you get pumped full of crap by the media, and that happens until you die when you're an elderly person. And what he was saying is that if you create an alternative schools and alternative media, and you bring people slowly towards your version of civil society, then you won't even need to have a violent revolution, because the alternative one that has been left will just rot away and die out. And for me, I think that is one of the smartest things.
Yeah, I think that's the end of capitalism as well. I think that is what we're seeing. The problem is it going to be able to see its way through? Because there are a lot of, I've noticed a massive rise in home education, because I home educate my son. And it does worry me. Well, it did worry me a lot more before, because I worried that when he eventually got to about 18 and he was looking for a job and that, because I'm trying to get him into programming, you know, computer programming, so he doesn't have to fit into the lifestyle, because he wouldn't cope with it. I can guarantee a lot of the home ed kids will not be able to cope with this capitalist society, because it's just, I know a few of Jamie's friends that are literally, you'd be throwing them into the deep end, because it's not what you teach. When you home educate, you certainly do not teach that it's a product line. You've got to fight for the survival of the fittest. There's none of that. So when someone's horrible, they're like, well, they're horrible. And they get I've noticed more sensitivity and more compassion in that way, but also a lack of ability to blend into that kind of bullying mentality. The planet is a bully. The whole system, it bullies you. Society, the lot. It's not until you take them out of the system and you're constantly hearing why have they done that? Why have they said that? Why you realise that what you thought was normal is really bullyish. And you know,
I think that it's making so much control and lack of freedom and probably the government domineering our lives makes people want to domineer other things, and I think that's what pushes violence up.
Yeah.
You know, like a man that's working hard and his boss is always on his back at work, and he feels like shit and he feels like crap. The only outlet he's got is his wife when he gets back home. You know, I'm not excusing his behaviour. I'm just saying that, you know, I think that the social pressures and the restraints put on people now, it's like a pressure cooker for violence. You know,
yeah.
That bloke on the train playing Candy Crush, and that woman just starts giving him racial
I got
abuse.
deleted off my wall.
It got deleted?
It got removed.
I mean, this bloke was sat on was it a tube or was it a bus? Sat on a bus or a tube, playing Candy Crush, and some woman just started really shouting effing blinding cunting this racial abuse about him. Get back to your own country. You know, that sort of pent up anger. It's you know, worrying about not having food, paying your bills, looking after your kids, all these pressures that are on people. Even people working don't always have quality of life beyond work. And I just think we are really probably creating a society that's really going to damage our children.
It's a ticking time bomb. And this is the problem, because I look at my son and I think, well, hang on a minute, he's 13 now. I don't let him go to the park on his own, because I fear the people in the area and the other kids. You know, he went to a park on his own about a year and a half ago. He got beaten up. That was the last time he went to a park on his own. He can't handle society because he doesn't understand why they are the way they are, whereas they've all been brought up in, like you said, to fend for themselves, because everyone's fending for themselves. Everybody. And it's hard to implant somebody into that system that hasn't had to fend for themselves against the system, because honestly they're not tarred with that same anger, you know.
I mean, that is I mean, the thing that P said is exactly what Benito Mussolini said, funnily enough. The idea that the reason why the fascist state was setting up strong families, and the idea of the father being the head of the household, was because they wanted the next generation to grow up understanding the father is the head of the family, so that when they went into the real world, the father, i.e. the state, dominated them. that it was again controlling them from a young age in that sort of a nucleus of a small version of what the state was supposed to be, the be-all and end-all of power.
Yeah,
And I mean, that is obviously an extreme of it, but that's one way of looking at it. But the other thing is with what Gramsci said is that idea of, again, you know, if society brings people up in a certain way by indoctrinating them from schools, through unions, through the media, you will end up thinking that way. And the amount of times you protest against the government doing any of this, that won't make any dramatic change, because in the end, it's not the government that has the power anymore. It's civil society. It's things like the media, things like ITV, things like these big corporations that control what people view, what people see, what people believe and think.
And I think
And
the
often
problem you've
schools at a
got
younger
there
age.
is there's a fear, because I'll admit I felt that when I first took my boy out of school, and we don't have TV either, which also it's really strange, yeah, that when they first go to school you can immediately notice the difference, because they've Hannah's first lunchbox was it had a giant tarantula on it, and it was like a National Geographical lunchbox. She thought that was ultra cool. She didn't really understand what the whole Peppa Pig thing was. It didn't have that same. She saw it. She didn't want them because she'd never seen them. She didn't really get what it was all about. And when they get to school and they're talking about Peppa Pig, I can't remember the other names. That's the only one I ever remember. When they're talking about these and they're updating their lunchboxes and they're doing all this, it is so hard for them to fit in. It is unbelievable. It's a massive difference. It's like some of the things that Hannah's got, she's got because her friends have got. She doesn't understand what they are. And, you know, it's hard for them to fit in. And it's the same with my son. They'll talk about things that are totally... They'll talk about TV programs, a young boy. Now, I can't imagine that. Like, because my kids are just like... The only thing, the conversation with him is like Minecraft. He loves Minecraft, you know. He'll talk about that, but when he gets talking with other kids and they're talking about girls and stuff like that, he's so far off that yet. It's unbelievable, and it makes you worry. There's a fear that you've made them less streetwise, and you know, some people would call it backward, and it is not. He's just growing at what pace he's meant to grow at. I personally believe he's not got that pressure. That, you know, he's got girls in the home ed group. He's met a few of the activist women's girls off online as well, and he's you know, had those moments, those sparks where he's like, oh, she was really nice, you know. So he's not totally unaware of those situations, but he hasn't got that need to go at the pace of society. I've seen 13-year-old lads out there, and it worries me. It honestly does, and that's the fear you'd get from home educating. I can understand why people don't want to do it, because it alienates them.
See, around here, I'm really lucky that some time ago, I think the parents recognised the fact that home education could be quite isolated, and I think more around the country, parents are getting together and they're creating their own little groups, and they're doing classes, they're doing Christmas plays, and they're doing school trips and things like that, just to keep, you know, those traditions that are nice about mainstream.
Do you know what we call the kids? We always say, like, because the 6 weeks holidays on, we called it hibernation time, right? We all just go, the home ed people go into hibernation, right? Because we say the moggles are out. Because it's so hard. You go swimming or anywhere and there's just like kids everywhere, and they're moggles. That's what we all call them, because we do create a group, and it is like still a school group. We go den building, we still do all the trips and stuff like that the same, and have maths tutor groups and things like that. So we do have our own little schooling system. But yeah, we're all like, the moggles are coming, everyone hibernate for 6 weeks.
Right, I've got to go.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Speak to you guys again next week.
All right, guys.
Bye.
See you
Take care.
later.